hooker with a heart of gold, prairie nymphs, soiled doves, sporting women, whores.
Prairie nymphs is very cute.
You're listening to The Oldest Profession. My name is Kaytlin Bailey. I worked as an hourly escort when I was in high school for no good goddamn reason. I was just super curious. And then when I needed money for the first time, I got into sugaring because I'm not stupid.
I'm Wendi Starling. I started selling my panties on the internet when I was 34. Then from there, made the very smart leap to sugaring at the ripe old age of close to 35. So I do that to help support comedy.
So every week on The Oldest Profession, I am going to tell a story about an old hoe that came before us because it's the oldest profession, so it's got to have a history, right? And all these bitches have really cool stories. So I'll be telling a story from a sex worker, whore, lady of the night, woman of ill repute, whatever you want to fucking call it, that came before us.
And you are listening to The Oldest Profession.
To The Oldest Profession.
You got to keep things spicy.
What's finger licking good? I mean, come on. Obviously, The Oldest Profession
has a history. So I went on like a crazy, just like some crazy ex-girlfriend on Instagram, and I've been looking at the director, producer, and I'll see that they're like taking pictures and doing hashtag funny pains, which is in theory, the documentary that's supposed to be coming out.
It's
and
supposed
I go
to be
through
about you.
And I like it. And then I put like a bunch of crazy emojis.
Right?
The one with Princeton and Christina, I liked it, and then I put a comment. I was like, oh, hooray, I'm glad. I thought I was hallucinating this whole thing.
Yeah, because nobody's keeping me in the goddamn loop. I hate that. I hate that so much. When you have to ask for information to do your goddamn job. Yeah. And I don't know, do men just do that? Or do people just give men the information they need? You know what I mean? Is it a gender thing? Is it a me thing?
Right.
Is it a these assholes thing? Is it a performer? Is this universal? Because it doesn't feel universal.
Yeah. No.
Right?
And we should if you're listening, just to fill you in, we're coming in hot. We just started. These people made a documentary about me. They followed me for 2 years.
We're very excited to see it. When it comes out, we'll be promoting the shit out of it.
Right.
If we have any information, I wouldn't be surprised to see the name of the documentary on a goddamn marquee.
Right.
And that's the first of a release date. Are they going to invite you to the opening? Wendy?
I don't know.
Do you know?
They might just text me like, hey, the premiere's tonight. And I'm like, you dumb fucks. I gotta go. I got to meet my sugar daddy in a hotel room. So
right. I got plans, bitch.
Yeah. Well, if you know, Jesus Christ, some of us have jobs. It is over and I rarely do I feel that I'm a woman, so that's why I'm being treated this way. But when I just ask for simple information, like, hey, you told me I was going to have these things by this date. It's now 2 months past the deadline that you gave me. And I have not received those things, nor have I heard any follow-up from you.
Yeah, no, it feels like this is the legacy of the hysteria myth, right?
Yes.
Is gaslighting women into thinking that asking for reasonable things in a reasonable way is like a cunty, uppity bitch move.
Right.
Right? To feel like you're putting somebody out to ask to be BC. You're not asking them to send you a special email.
Nope.
You're literally not creating more work for people. You're only asking to be kept in the loop for the process of promoting a documentary that's about you.
Yeah.
This is your brand.
The only reason they have a movie, it's not like I acted in a movie and someone else wrote the script. The story is my actual life.
Yes.
So I'm going to be exploited. I'm worried about being exploited because
of course you are.
They have the footage of me signing up for seeing arrangements. They have that footage. They have me having a couple different psychotic breaks. They have me working out the rape material.
Mm-hmm.
So they have all this stuff, and I'm going to look, I might look cool, but I'm also going to look like a psycho. But I am, but what are you going to do, But it's and then even the jokes, it's the quotes, it's me. The whole thing is me. So it's yeah. Just,
why don't you ask me? Just ask.
Yeah. Or just,
and also, you probably have better ideas than whatever, ad intern or something they have trying to strategize how to best we have a history producing, promoting shows, creating branded material, putting out content. We know what our audience wants.
Right.
And
yeah. Oh no, it's because they're we want to make it be, how hard it is for women in comedy, and in their minds, they're men being very supportive, hey, you're lucky we're making it. It's bitch, I didn't ask you to do this. This was your fucking idea. And you want to hear about why. You want an example of how frustrating and difficult it can be to be a woman in comedy or entertainment? How about you just tape record your meetings that you're having where you're not involving me?
How about this interview where you're not listening? You're you can't, it's you can't hear me when I talk. They're
Right.
like, oh, she wants to control everything. No, she just wants to be looped in.
Right. I
That's
want
like, no.
information. Anyway. So, but what are you
Speaking
going
of
to do?
frustrations.
I know. How are you?
No. I wanna say this right up top of the show. We love your emails. Please keep them coming. They're amazing. But we cannot answer specific personalized questions about things that are illegal. Look, this is a podcast. This is a comedy podcast.
Right.
This is entertainment. We can answer your general questions on the podcast.
Yes.
But we can't be creating a document back and forth of us walking you through how to commit crimes. That's not.
Yeah.
No, we're not. We don't have that kind of insurance. You know what I mean? Like, we don't.
Yeah, we love you guys.
We love you so much.
Yes.
And we want to help. It's so frustrating. We want to help so bad, but
Right.
we cannot be given that kind of specific information because you know what they do to mouthy whores historically. Beat us to death or tar and feather us or lock
Right.
us up in cages. So we don't want to be making that real easy on the government.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even think about that in the movie. They have footage of me. I don't know if they're going to put it in. That's why I want to see a rough cut because
It's
they
all
have
art.
footage. Yeah, it's all art.
It's all art. It's all
They
art.
have some footage of me that I'm like, oh, that's funny. And I'm like, oh, that could possibly be.
Right. It's like, how bad do you want this to get? Oh, man. Sweet. So
Yeah, so that's good. So what do you want? So, and what's interesting is we've got an email recently and it fits in with the topic of
Yes.
today's show.
Yes, which is
The episode.
how to create demand, I guess, or how to heighten expectations.
Right. I like to call it fake it till you make it.
Yeah, fake it till you make
And
it.
I know you did this and you've told the story a couple of times on the
Yes.
show and but there's a technique and I think and not just in sex work but in any job and in any like in comedy in any other position you have there's a way to kind of come in with your own intrinsic set of values.
Yes.
And if you stick to those and a lot of times that means not taking the first in any job. If you're at a finance
Right.
company, you don't take the first
You want to
offer.
take the first offer. Right.
In a
Remember
sales,
what your grandma told you about prom dates?
Yep.
Do that. Right?
Yeah.
Bitches in the 40s had this on lockdown because they didn't have any other rights. Like, and it's one of those things like from societies where they're like training women basically on like how to court and seduce like a husband, right? Like while protecting their
Right.
virginity, this like upper class thing. It's not sex work. It's just kind of like Eminem's like, you got this one shot. Like you better make it
Well,
count.
that's
Yes.
every fucking Cosmo article,
Yes.
dude. Everything you read
How to trap a man.
yeah, how to get a man to like you, how to make him notice you. Get the fuck out of
And
here.
it's not giving him what he wants right away. And
Right.
it's by treating yourself with the value and respect that you want him to show you. So like, I mean, me and my sugar daddy went back and forth for years trying to figure out like, I just wouldn't respond to him if he gave me less than 24 or 48 hours notice. Or if I had a mic or a gig or a podcast or a dinner date or a foot massage scheduled for the time that he wanted to see me, I wasn't available.
Right. Yeah, you can't exactly, and you have to set those boundaries.
Right.
And
Now,
then
it helped that he was paying me monthly. So like
yeah,
that need went away.
right.
As did his power.
Yeah. But even then that's nice if you can get that fucking
Yeah, that's a nice hookup.
And that's something else that you just have to and you have to kind of make those and what's interesting when I worked on the cruise ship as a trainer, there's so many skills and I remember looking back you go like, oh, and the longer you stay alive, which is a note to myself mostly, but other people are like, hey, don't kill yourself. It's going to be okay. Things are okay. Like I have a place to live, but it's just, you go like, come on.
Yeah.
But the further you go in life and you look back and experiences where you go like, why the fuck did I do that? That's a crazy decision. I'm like, oh, I learned a skill set that I would use 7 years down the road.
Yes.
And one of the things on the cruise ship as a trainer and even as a personal trainer on land, but I was able to sell session packages because that's that's how you make money. You're selling training packages. So you have to be confident enough to ask somebody, say, what is your goal? What's your weight loss goal? Okay, so how many times a week can you come in? Great. What are realistic expectations? You do a calculation of like how many calories to burn to get whatever. And you go, okay, so that's going to be like 20 weeks.
Yeah.
And if you're coming in, how many times a week can you come in? And there's a sales pitch and a technique.
You can save such and such amount of money if you do this. Just make the commitment. And,
right.
Yeah.
And so you go, okay, so you can come in twice a week. Okay. And they'd be like 2 to 3. I'm like, well, let's say 2. Okay, great. So then you do 2 times 40 sessions at this much money. And you're okay. So you're looking at, and I mean, as a 22-year-old, I would have to ask adults.
Right.
As a 22-year-old who was broke, I had to sit in an office and you write it on a piece of paper and you'd push it to them like
Slide
a fucking car salesman.
Right. Yeah. Like it's going to be about this amount of money.
And you had to act like you didn't care. And so I was having to ask people to give me like $7,000.
Yes.
At once. And then they just look at you and you're like, and you learn those techniques. And on the cruise ship, it was even harder because these people are on vacation, binge eating.
Yep.
And I was not selling them workouts with me. I was selling them a detox
future
package.
workouts in the future.
I was selling them pills.
Yes.
I was selling them seaweed detox packets. And someone was just like, put this in your bath.
Snake oil. Witchcraft. Yes. Bullshit.
Yep. And I had to charm the shit out of them with a 45-minute sales pitch, a.k.a. a headlining set.
Yeah.
Get their dumbasses into a room.
They want you to like them so much, they're going to give you $7,000 for seaweed pills.
Yep. And then I'm never going to see them again. And you had to do that very quickly. And most of the time on the cruise ship, if I'm being honest, I was drunk. I was drunk teaching class. It was miserable. I lived in the hull of a ship. So, I mean, the experience of living in the bottom of a ship where like the room, like you can't move, you 2 people, you can't move. So you feel like a rat and you feel like a rat on the Titanic. You're down there. You're living in horrible conditions. You're being treated. I mean,
why is mental illness such an epidemic? Oh, maybe because we don't treat ourselves as good as we treat our dogs. Dogs get a walk twice a day. Okay.
Yeah. And so you're in those conditions, and then you go up to the top of the ship. So you have to pull because you're like, what have I done? I'm making no money. I'm having to work 18 hours a day. I haven't seen daylight in 2 days. And then you have to go up and be like, hey, rich people. And you have to make them like you and trust you and have the confidence to ask for large sums of money for what you know is probably bullshit.
Yeah.
Now, that's not dissimilar from both of our experiences.
Yes, both of our experience with sugaring. It's absolutely a sales job, except instead of selling bullshit, you're selling actual narcissistic supply.
Right. And you come like for you, you're sleeping on a yoga mat, or I was sleeping on a bed that was like collapsed on the ground.
I stole toilet paper the day that that he just popped open a $600 bottle of wine. $600 bottle of wine. He's pouring more than my rent. Right, like just between the 2 things, and I just have to sit there and be like, "Yeah, this is cool." And I wasn't getting paid that day, right? Because this was about future negotiations in the future,
right?
And I was like, instead of that bottle of wine, that's rent. At the time, I mean, I was only paying like $400 a month to sleep on those yoga mats, and I was still having a hard time scraping it together.
What a deal! See, New York's not that bad.
It's not that bad.
Oh my
God.
just
bed bugs and fucking heat rashes and no privacy for the low price of $400 a month.
But it comes with a bottle of seaweed pills. So that made it worth it. You can detox from the lice or whatever.
But yeah, no, it felt like that absolutely in sex work. It feels a little bit like that in comedy because you're definitely playing that like emotional energy. You got to be on whether you're on or not, right? Like,
and you're tired when you start.
Yes.
Like, I don't know if we've talked about between this and Jammers, I'm really podcasted out. So if I've said this on this podcast, I apologize. When I first moved to LA, when I moved from Florida to LA, I was working at Whole Foods, but it was only like 25 hours a week. I was part-time. So I had no benefits. My room, I was renting a room for $800 a month, and I had a car, and I was living in Hollywood, and I had to drive to Santa Monica.
Oh, fuck.
My budget, okay, and I was just starting. I'd done well in Florida in comedy, and I'd saved some money, but my budget for spending, I promise you, I'm not exaggerating, was between $27 and $35 a week.
Yes.
For spending a week. So
that includes toilet paper, toothpaste, toothbrushes, you break a nail. You got it's
everything. And I was living at the time with it. We're still kind of friends, but it broke up. She's a trust fund kid. Her comes from a very well-known set of parents, and she became kind of crazy. And I remember being like, "You don't work. Why are you?" She was like, "Oh, cable, you have to pay for cable." And I'm like, "I'll close my eyes and not look at the TV when I walk in. I can't afford this."
Yeah.
But so I was living on like a half an apple a day, and thank God, and like with peanut butter, but I was so thin because I just didn't have money for food.
Yeah, it's a great diet.
And I was eating, and I was binge eating when I would go to Whole Foods. I was binge eating like the expired groceries that they were about to throw out. I remember people would be like, "She just sits back there and eats cookies and chips all day, and she's thin as a rail." I'm like, "That's because this is
the only time I'm eating."
Yeah, this is all I'm eating. So you have that, and you feel like a piece of. It's hard to not feel like a piece of trash.
Yep.
when you're eating literal trash, and
or when you're being kept in the hull of a ship like a fucking rat. Yeah. No, you're right.
And then you have to then go up and go like and then go on stage and
Yep.
have the energy to be like, I know I'm going to try to do jokes about this and try to have a good attitude, and you're tired and you're hungry and you're malnourished, and like
the boot camp of this
Excuse me.
the boot camp of this for me was when I was doing street fundraising for campaigns. That like, you know, the people that stand outside like, hey, do you have a minute for the environment?
Yeah.
Right? Like when I was doing that, well, I mean, like I was managing that, but I was spending 4 days a week on the street, and like you're supposed to talk to, I mean, like they track numbers, right? So it's like, you know, you stopped 50 people, then, you know, 10 of them gave you money, averaging blah, blah, blah. But like I was asking people for their credit card information on the streets of New York City.
It's crazy.
For the concept of a more just future, maybe. Like it's an idea.
I know, and I don't know. I will a lot of times if it's like I already send money to like 2 different charities. Not a ton. It's like $5 a month, but it's like I'm broke, but it makes me, you know.
The cool thing about grassroots support like that is that if there isn't that swell of people, like a lot of people giving a little bit, then it forces the charity to depend on a couple of people that give a lot, and that gives those people way too much control, right? So like that's what fucked the ACLU. The ACLU had like one idealistic donor, and then some financial crisis happened, and they were like, I can't afford this $20 million a year shit, and the ACLU was like, oh fuck. So they started the street campaign, and so now they have hundreds of thousands of people giving them a little bit of money a month, which does 2 things. One, it gives them sustainable income, right? Because it's like harder to fuck with that many people, right? Whereas like one person can just change their mind one day or die or like, you know, do acid and like change their values or like some shit can happen. Like, I don't fucking know, right? Like, I don't know. And
somebody went on a retreat this week and I forgot.
I went on a retreat. We're going to talk about it.
Just like die or I don't know, like do acid and just like breathe deeply and realize that we're all connected.
Their chakras not aligned with social justice anymore.
Jesus Christ.
So, but if it's a bunch of people, and then it's also a signal to politicians, because if you have 100,000 people giving you a little bit of money, that's 100,000 people that are putting their money where their mouth is. They really believe in this shit. So they're more likely to read your emails. They're more likely to contact their senator. They're more likely to vote, because when you invest in something, right, when you give something money, you're more psychologically invested. We used to think if you're psychologically invested enough in something, you'll give it money. But it's actually the opposite. Once you give money to something, you're more invested in it. Yeah.
Oh, that's a 1,000,000%. And I knew that even with training and and I've learned that is when people, if you can give them, you know, once you invest money in something, now you're emotionally attached to it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then we got to find out how do we get people if you are, and
give us money.
Yeah. Speaking of you think you like this podcast now. Wait till you go to our Patreon page and
give us money.
Yeah.
You can like us so much more just psychologically. You don't even need the bonus content that you'll be getting.
Look at this.
Right?
Couple of pros.
Just
I'll sell you what do you want? Pussy, seaweed. I probably could sell you an overpriced bar of soap. That was my position at Whole Foods, was whole body.
No, it's so important as we're watching the world change around us to like support the artists you love, because they're the other ways of making money are going away. I don't know if you read that article that was circulating around Facebook about how Facebook is ruining comedy, but like just 2 or 3 years ago, internet,
too many jokes about status likes. That's my first thing.
I think that's the content creators aren't being paid. They have to pay to get their own content out to their own fans. It used to be if you liked a page, that like that page's content would get shown to you. Now with their algorithm, they're forcing businesses and content creators to pay Facebook to promote to their own.
Oh yeah, you have to pay to get a sponsored ad.
Yeah, yeah, you have to do that, and so they're making money both on the ad revenue from the eyeballs that your content is generating. They're also taking your money in order to get that content in front of those eyeballs. So just 2 or 3 years ago, internet content creators used to be able to make money, like enough money to justify all of the energy that they were doing in content creation. Yeah, they're not anymore, and it's because that ecosystem is withering.
Well, to be fair, I don't know if that's really. I mean, to be fair, a lot of the shit I see on a lot of the stuff I get that's thrown at me on Facebook is not comedy, and it is not funny, and it is not good. But it is. Wait, you mean to tell me a company that started out as a way to like judge who you would fuck in college that turned into like a weird facial recognition thing? where they're pinpointing your needs and desires is bad.
Yeah, no, it's weird. It's weird. Yeah, that shift into authoritarianism is creepy as fuck. What's happening in China right now is that, like, so there are all the, like, I don't want to nerd out. I got a lot of reading done on the plane, and I didn't get a lot of sleep. So I got weird ideas about China.
Oh,
but
great. You were on acid on a plane reading about China.
I didn't do any acid. There was no acid done this weekend. It was just deep breathing. It's that powerful, Wendy.
You don't have to tell me, sister.
Yeah. So there, all these private companies are like, the government is the major contractor. That's like, how do we increase our surveillance? So they're creating this like citizen scorecard, basically. So if you post like anti-authoritarian Facebook posts on like whatever they have, they don't have Facebook in China, but they have like some equivalent of that.
Yeah.
Like then you get deducted citizen points, and maybe they take your visa away.
Yeah.
Like, it's like,
I don't know. My ex-roommate, the girl I used to live with, her parents still live in Shanghai. Mm-hmm. So it's terrifying, and nobody wants to talk about it because
they can't talk about it. Talking about it gets your points deducted. You might get beaten to death.
And there's something else. I heard this. It was on Planet Money. I listen to all this shit. Here's honest to God. Listening to, you want to talk about this email that we got from a listener? Thank you so much. Let's just, because we're going to address it kind of in and out throughout I'll just break down the content of the email. It was going from like being an escort, like, you know, on Eros and something like that. Whereas an escort for most basic is like $500 an hour, right? Sure.
In big cities, it, like, depending on where you're at, like, it ranges, but like, yes.
But it's more of like an hourly thing.
Yes. No, the boundaries are clear. You're paying X number of dollars for Y amount of time.
Right.
Yes.
And so she was like, oh, maybe I'll try sugaring. Yeah. So she signed up for SA, and it's like very frustrated with dudes because they all want to pretend, and you've talked about this. Yeah. They want this fantasy of like, oh, I'm not hiring a sex worker. I just have a cool girlfriend.
Yeah, a cool broke girlfriend.
Right. That I help out sometimes. And so they like that fantasy.
They also I think that they like the fantasy that we live in like fairy never wonderlands, where things don't cost money, or like we don't have rent to pay, or like we don't shit, or like I don't know what they fucking think, but like a $300 allowance does not a lifestyle change make, you fucking asshole.
No. And when they go, and it'll be like, yeah, and a lot of times too, but that's the problem she's having is what they pitch, and you and I been on SA, and when you read a lot of the stuff, that's why a lot of it I'm like, well, this seems dumb, because it's like, and when you explain, I do comedy, I work, I have other jobs, and you kind of, and you can set it up that way, but they're like, okay, we'll go to dinner, we'll go to a show, but they want to spend the whole fucking day with you and have you spend the night, and they're like, and then I can give you like, a $300 tip, and it's like, $300?
This is happening
for 6 hours?
No, it's fucking crazy. It's like, is that even minimum wage? It's certainly not dick sucking minimum wage, you fucking wrinkled cunt.
No.
So like, it's it's a nightmare. But this is a symptom of what's happening all over the gig economy. So there are all these cab drivers that are committing suicide now because they have to be working like 120 hours a week in order to like scrape by. Whereas like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, they were working 40 hours a week, making like $80,000 a year, and like they can't support their families anymore. Right. And a lot of them took out loans to get like the licensing to be a taxi cab driver, which used to be a good investment, but now with Uber, like it's just, so Uber drivers are like the part-time sex workers of the gig economy because it's pitched not as like a career, but as like a way to pay off your car loan. So all these fucking Uber, like all these amateur Uber drivers that are clogging up the taxi cab economy, and they're squeezing out the real professionals. You see this in the strip club economy here. There are all these illegal strip clubs where all of these girls with other careers are doing this for like fun mad money and as like an experience to have, right? And we're seeing what's happening with the strip clubs here in New York. They're getting more brutal, specifically more brutal for people of color. Right. And so it's happening here is like Seeking Arrangements was pitched as not prostitution. Right. So you have all these amateurs.
Not prostitution.
That's not prostitution. You have all these amateurs that don't know their value, that don't know the worth of this thing, that are clogging up the goddamn machine, giving these dumb fucking dudes dumb ideas about what our time costs. It's like it's like some dumb 19-year-old that thinks that being like flown to Hawaii is like a great deal. All she has to do is put up with this 50-year-old. I'm like, you can't pay your tuition with that plane ticket, bitch. Like, this is for him.
Yeah. What I'm going to go to my landlord and be like, hey,
I have all these rich people experiences.
Right. Bad news. I don't have money for rent. Good news. I have type 2 diabetes because I've been going out to dinner every single night. Look, I'm missing a toe. Come on. Give me an extension. Yeah, you can't. And that's the thing, too, is when it's like, I'll take you shopping. It's like, no. That's extra.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, to take me shopping costs you extra in addition to what we buy.
Right.
But a scarf is not compensation. Why? I can't, because it's not currency.
Right. I had a guy that I saw for a while, and then it just like, I would see, and then like the amount would be different each time. And I've bitched about him a little bit on here, but that was one of the things where I got so agitated because I was like, oh, I had to buy a phone charger. I left my phone charger home one day. So I was like, oh, I'm late. I got to go pick up a phone charger. So I see him the next time. So the next time I see him, like a month later, and he brings me, he's like, oh, here, I have a gift for you. Now, in his mind, we have got an emotional bond, which he said that. I remember he's like, if this doesn't feel like an arrangement, it just feels like an affair. And I'm like, oh, no. Make no mistake. Make no mistake.
You're right. I'm a great actress.
Right. I'm like, yeah, I know. I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. Like a scholarship. Like, I got a scholarship there.
Yeah, that's why I'm so expensive.
Yeah, guess what? I do comedy every night. You think I fucking like to? I do love doing it, but you know, I mean, do you think that really happened on the way to the club? Fuck out of here. So, yeah, I want to be like, oh, no. I'm a full-blown sociopath.
Authentic inauthenticity.
Yeah, but just bring gifts. And he's like, oh, I brought you all the like portable phone charger and the equipment. He's like, this is like $700 worth of equipment. I was like, great. I don't care. And this is more shit for me to lug around.
Right.
They're just not thinking. And so they think like there are other ways and some of the guys like, yeah, but it's crazy. And the thing that I found is, but it's the same thing with the panty sales.
Yeah.
There were bitches on there that will go and they would just do like, they're like, well, it's $20.
Panties for dinner. Or panties for $20 because they're doing the math wrong. They're not calculating the emotional labor. And then they feel exploited. They feel like they're being treated like shit.
Right.
Because they started treating themselves like shit.
Right.
And then they cued in the rest of the world that was like, we know that script. We can exploit a bitch. We know how to do that.
Right. It's a negotiation, and it's like any other sales thing. And the number one tip in sales, and I took high pressure like sales training, especially on the cruise ship. But the thing with that is when you're making a deal, any kind of a deal, this is just a general negotiation tip, but from your friendly neighborhood sociopathic whores. If you're making the offer. Once you go, this is how much money it is. This is how many training sessions. This is right.
This is how much it's going to cost.
Yep. You slide that over. Once the other person looks at it, after that interaction, the first person to speak,
say nothing,
loses. The
Absolutely.
first person to speak has lost the deal.
Less words. The more, like, if you find yourself justifying the cost, right? Well, what you have to understand is my shoes cost this, and I have to get the hotel room, and I have to drive all the way out here, and like, what you don't understand, like, all of that.
Right.
Stop. None of it matters.
Right.
Right. And B, like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Is that the less you say, the more you can ask for.
Yep. And if you have if you have a number in your mind, or you have that, like, just don't go below it. And even though it seems scary,
that's a boundary.
It's like, oh, cool, I could go pick up $200 and get, but it's like, then it's like, okay, well, but if you take that and you're out for the whole night, and here's the thing too, and I had this experience with a guy who, I really liked him. He's cool. And then we had a discussion later where, and I met with him and I liked him. He's like, oh, it's a little bit, I'm like, okay, it's a little less. And so I just like left early.
Yeah.
And like, after that, we had a discussion where he wanted to see me more. And he was like, oh, I thought you were going to be here at 7:00. And I'm like, well, no, I booked a show, even if I didn't, because I'm like, I'm teaching you a lesson right now.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to spend fucking 7 p.m. I could be at an open mic. I could be doing other shit. I could be working a coat check.
Yeah.
I could go work a coat check.
And at least you'd know how much money you were making.
Right. I could do that and make money because I'm not going to, that's a waste of my time. Time is energy. I could be writing. I could be working on, on the script.
Yep.
This is not, and so then I would just show up later and then he would get kind of mad and it's like, and I would break down and I would lie sometimes and say like, oh, I had other jobs.
Stressed out about money. This is what this does to me. My aunt gave me this advice when I was just dating. Now, my aunt was born in to absolute poverty in rural Kansas in like the late 50s. And by the time she was 15, she had 2 kids. She married for money 3 times. Okay. So she first she married at 15 to like get out of the house. Right. And then they got divorced, right? She married twice more for money, and now she's a wealthy woman, right? But so she taught me this kind of stuff, but not in the context of sex work, just in the context of like, this is how dating is done. This is how women get power back.
Yep.
This is how you train men to treat you the way that you want to be treated. And like, I don't like to do my relationships that way. I don't like to date men that I feel like I have to train like dogs.
Right.
Clients, however, I've always found this information very helpful. And you execute it beautifully. Of like, just be in a cunty mood. Yeah. And when he asks why, tell him. Yeah. Like, it's very like, yeah, if you wanna shortchange me, I can shortchange you right back because I have the power to change the weather in the room.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right. And what you're paying for is valuable. Look, I can prove it. Look what happens when I take it away.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the easiest. And I would always, and I'm like, well, I would tell him, I'm like, I appreciate that you're, that I appreciate that you're helping me. Mm-hmm. And if I had another gig or I picked up whatever, like, and I sometimes would lie, but I don't care.
Right.
Because, the prostitute told a lie. And not that, obviously it's like a joke because it's not prostitution if you're listening.
Yeah, no, on so many levels, actually.
No, it's not, because I would assume that if you're an actual escort, it's a lot less fucking emotional labor to deal with.
It is a lot less. Yeah.
The negotiation part of it.
Yeah, because there is no negotiation part of it. Right? Because like, and that's the thing that's frustrating about seeking arrangements, and why I think like the industry is getting a little bit frustrated with it, because it's subject to the same economic principles as the rest of the gig economy, mm-hmm. which is like, as full-time work goes away, right? Because no one wants to give you benefits. That's why you only work 25 hours a week at Whole Foods, right? Like, as this shit erodes and more people are pushed into this kind of economy, it like waters down everything and it makes everything harder, which is why having structured shit can really help create an atmosphere that benefits the escort. And on that note, I want to talk about Yoshiwara? Yoshiwara?
Yeah.
Yoshiwara.
It's my favorite teriyaki bowl place in LA.
Yoshiwara.
Yeah, this
the
is
the famous pleasure center.
Yes.
In the Edo era of Japan. So let's get into it.
Cool. I'm into it. When was this?
Well, I want to give a little bit of background. So the Edo era of Japan is 1603 to 1868. But I want to give a little bit of background on like Japan before the 1600s, right? Okay. So before 1100, Japan is kind of like this cool sexual paradise island where like there are female like shamans. I'm not pronouncing it. Shamans, female shamans, and like sexuality is practiced fairly freely. So like there wasn't prostitution there because there was just so much free sex.
Right.
But China came in and they introduced slavery and prostitution at the same time, and basically the merchants were like, we're uncomfortable with this free sex shit. We don't like we're too much female power.
We have facial recognition software we're putting into your pussy. So
the merchants were like, this is too uncomfortable.
We got to make sure it's only guys. We've scanned all your faces. You have to look into her pussy. It will light up if you have enough money to pay. It's connected to your bank account.
We don't like this she has to like us bullshit.
Right.
We want dependency. That's what we need in a relationship to feel comfortable with a woman.
It was the original I Cunt 10.
Yeah. So prostitution becomes officially legalized in the 1100s. And in 1200, Japan gets invaded by the Mongols and the Khan, and they almost lose, and it freaks Japan the fuck out. So they do this real character switch over to a military dictatorship that really culminates in the 1600s, that they exile all the Christian missionaries, they murder outsiders, they fucking they outlaw guns, and they elevate like samurais, and they become like a samurai military dictatorship that is like mythically isolated. Like they become this isolated island. Like they're like, we hate outsiders, they always murder us, they bring slavery, it's bad.
Yeah.
But it's this military dictatorship.
The only one they let in very famously was Tom Cruise.
Yes.
The Last Samurai. You're all very young, you might not know that reference. But that fucking short little man with that ponytail.
Oof, that was a sexy.
He can unsheath my sword, and he did. That doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry, I've been podcasting all day and yelling and meeting. You know what I mean. It was a sexual innuendo.
Right, but for those of you that don't know or haven't seen the Tom Cruise movie, samurai, they're like the knights of honor of Japanese culture, and they have a really strict culture, right? Like and because they become a military dictatorship and a samurai like obsessed culture, but they're so successful at isolating, they're not fighting any wars, they just get real cunty about like where the fucking like plates go. They just get really specific about like etiquette and hierarchy. And so like the samurai code becomes more about like face saving status symbol and less about like principles of honor, because like there's no one there to fight anymore. Like it's like
the
400
samurai
years.
code. This is the beginning of OCD.
Yes.
This is the samurai code.
Yeah. A lot of energy to get real specific about shit that doesn't matter.
I'm picturing like a giant samurai like in his armor, but then when he talks and he's like organizing like the plates or the cups, like but his voice is like Woody Allen, like real nebbishy, like this doesn't go here, just like real picky. And that was about Jews, and I don't care. I have had sex with 2 Jews.
It's the same energy. Just the 2?
I'm sure more.
There's no way.
I'm sure more.
Yeah.
I dated a Jew and I lived with a Jew and I was in love with a Jew.
Oh, okay. But like client wise, it's mostly Jews.
No. I just had the one.
Weird.
No, 2.
Wait, counting the Jews has never ended well. Let's get back to Japan.
Idea. Hold on, I have screenshots of the tattoos I gave them. I'm like, no, maybe it's a massage. I'm just giving you a massage.
That's fantastic. So the military and political center of this samurai obsessed culture is Edo, which becomes Tokyo, right? So it's the capital of Japan, but it's 70% dudes, because it's all samurais and merchants that either are bachelors because the samurai code, or they're left their families somewhere because traveling merchants. So the city becomes this like a bachelor city, like more so than any other major metropolitan in human history. Like San Francisco was like that, like in the very beginning for a minute. This sustained for hundreds of years as this like bachelor city. And so a bunch of brothel owners, right? Because prostitution's legal in the 1100s, but a bunch of brothel owners get together, and in 1617, they lobby the government to say, we need to create like a separate place for prostitution to happen because it's not working as well here. And it's this, we could create, like there's so much demand for this, right? If we just regulated it and licensed it, it could be this whole new like tax revenue thing. So the government built like a 20-acre pleasure center just outside the city in order to do like a release valve on this fucking machismo state.
That's what
created.
We were talking about the last episode. Yeah. If you didn't listen, go back. The Ho-topia.
The Ho-topia. They created a real Ho-topia,
See,
Wendi.
And these bitches are on some kind of a ranch, and I love and it's samurai code. You know the MTV shows?
Code.
They have guy code and girl code. I pictured like if this was a show, it's like samurai code. It's just like a bunch of bros, and then they go to the pleasure farm.
Yeah, and they have to leave their swords at the gate.
Nice.
And once they walk in, it's like this female-centric cultural center, right? Musicians, artists, fashion, makeup. These bitches run shit in the largest, you can't even call it a brothel. It's like a collection of so many brothels. Like the residency reached 10,000. 3,000 of those were prostitutes, and the rest of the population are people that worked for them. So like hairdressers, seamstresses. They all had servants. They all had entourages. They all had to like change their kimonos 3 times a week. I mean, it wasn't great. A lot of these bitches ended up like in bunches of debt trying to keep up with this consumption lifestyle.
Oh, for sure.
But they called it the floating city because you walked in and it was like a Disneyland of fucking pleasure where everything was optimized for this like otherworldly love experience that elevated these women. And so the samurai, they're, like different hierarchies or whatever, but they created this, they really did create a Ho-topia. You're totally right.
I thought you were going to say it was a floating city because there was so much cum everywhere. The furniture was just like constantly shifting around, and there's like 2 inches of jizz all over the place. That's not. You know what that means? That's that with the makeup and hairstylist. That sounds like a card, like the back of like a Kardashian set.
Every date was like 24 hours. So so your average date with one of these women would cost from like start to end about $2,000. And I want to break down some of those costs for you. But you could like outside the walls, they had like cheap prostitutes. You could like just get fucked for $10. Right. So like street prostitution still exists. But the whole economy of this place is grounded in this like experience, right? So it cost you money to get there, right? You couldn't really walk because it was a dangerous road, but there were tea houses everywhere. So you could either rent like a taxi, which is just like a guy running, I think. With, like, that's right. It's just a guy running, but he runs fast.
You can get a taxi. Oh no, his name is Taxi. There's
his
one
name
of
is
him.
Taxi. You could rent an oar boat, and like people that wanted to show off would rent like more oarsmen so that they would like row faster so they could pass all of their rivals on the river on the way to this fucking
sick.
Yeah. Or you could, then this is the high class way to do it, rent a white steed that came with a singing stable boy. And that was the way that you could indicate to this place that you were VI fucking P.
You take a horse with a singing boy. What if a Taxi? That's both of his jobs. It's very sad. Hold on. The Taxi will be back in 2 hours. He has to go sing on the back of a horse.
But these men would bring entourages with them.
Yeah.
Right? And they would pay actors and they would pay musicians. And then so the first thing that would happen is you'd go and you'd rent a room at one of the hotels and you'd meet the hotel owner and you'd meet the hotel owner's wife. And so you had to tip your oarsman, tip your taxi person, tip your dumb stable boy, feed your horse, rent your horse.
Right.
And
feed your taxi.
Feed your taxi. And then you'd have to pay the hotel person. You'd have to pay his wife. You'd have to buy everybody food and sake. And then after the meal had already begun, this goddess, right? This like woman who's trained from childhood in the art of not expressing emotion. So that's like the highest thing. She's like, even if you're her favorite, she's not to look at you. She's not allowed to eat in your presence. She can only feed you, but she comes with her whole fucking entourage. And that you've got to tip her chaperone. She's got 2 servant girls. She's got 2 like little baby ho apprentices. She's got a couple of geishas, which during this time were not yet sex workers. They were like brilliant artists. They were like they were masters of the tea ceremony and master dancers and master singers. They blend into sex workers once this magical Ho-topia starts to fall apart, mostly because of fires and World War II.
Yeah.
Some shit goes down.
Fires are really the bitch of everything.
Yeah. So much fire. So she would come and they would do this ceremony where she would sit across from him and not look at him. And if she showed any infatuation, she was frequently like harassed, ridiculed, or even tortured. Like she'd be beaten by her chaperone for showing interest in one of her clients because it reduced her value.
Ooh, these bitches are running the game on these dudes.
Yeah, these bitches are running the game. And also, it wasn't expected once you booked a night. So if you had a specific bitch that you wanted to see, you had to write her a really long letter. And maybe she would see you. Or if you were just sort of open to anything, somebody would be presented to you. But she's not obligated to say yes to you. And so these women are playing this real political game because the higher status the dude they reject, the more valuable they become. But it's a really risky proposition because it's humiliating for him. And just like every place, everywhere, just outside these walls, these men have more power. Like, so they had to leave their swords and shit at the gate. But like, if you piss off a politician, it's not hard to crush a sex worker in some Ho-topia. Like that's,
right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But she could play kind of a political game.
Yeah.
So the most humiliating way to reject a guy is in front of both of your entourages at dinner, right? Where you just like sort of refuse to sit, basically, right? Or you refuse to do like the tea ceremony. Yep. Right. Yeah.
You just stand there with your arms crossed, just like probably, but yeah.
Basically, yeah. The
Sick.
less humiliating way to reject a guy, and this fascinates me, is to take
a text.
No, it's a not text.
A
Wendi.
group
That's
text.
A group text.
It's a group text with the entourages.
You text him and your best friend, and you're like, just for backup. You're like, I said no, and your best friend. Yeah, that's. You guys aren't doing that. That's a great way.
Group text with all the entourages. It's like we got 73 people on this thread.
So, is to take him into your bedchamber, and then ceremoniously turn up the light. Or turn your back to him in bed. And I'm like, I can't tell you how many times I've been taken from behind by some dude, but because the walls were so paper thin and all of these bitches had so much of an entourage, like it looks like there wasn't a lot of rape. Like she could just be in bed with him, turn away from him, and he knew that fucking her after she turned away from him was like such an etiquette violation that he would be so humiliated that they didn't even risk it.
Right. And then they wouldn't be able to come back.
Right. Yeah. They wouldn't be able to come back.
And maybe meet some other bitch. Right.
Exactly. But lovers be lovers, and like young hoes make mistakes too. And so there was a culture of like mutual suicide because like if a prostitute fell in love with anyone that couldn't afford to marry her, especially if she had like a lot of debt, they would frequently like commit dual suicide, or because these women were so trained in not showing emotion, a way to genuinely indicate that you're someone's favorite is some of these samurais would ask their quote unquote favorite to remove one of their nails while he watched, or like a fingertip. And once they did that, they devalued themselves in the economy, because a missing fingertip meant that you'd already promised yourself to someone else and that you like showed emotion.
God damn. A missing fingertip.
Yeah. But the art was spectacular, Wendy.
Right.
Like I can't
saying that, but I will the fingertip thing, the nails. I was like, no, it's true. You know, take care of your fingernails.
Yeah,
don't bite your nails down. Holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
That's, you know, that it's so interesting. But yeah, that's part of the, and that what is crazy to me. And it was like this email we got from the chick, and what you're talking about was happening there. What's so backwards to me is if a guy with these dudes, these clients, it's so fucking twisted, because if they're like, oh, I'm not treating you like a sex worker. I'm not just gonna take you back to my room and fuck you for an hour and give you a $500 or $1,000. I don't want you to feel like a whore.
Right. I'm going to take you on this long, extended, excruciating date where I
Right.
talk at you the whole time and give you less money. Don't you feel special?
Yeah, isn't that nice? If you're lucky, I'll talk about my kids.
God damn it.
I mean, like, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
It's time. It's time and money. And it's like, if it's like, oh, and we're going out to dinner, I got so pissed one time. And again, these are conversations we have had later.
Yeah.
But I'm like, when we'll go on like a date, and it's just like this really cool thing. But it's like, he goes, oh, I got this thing, and the tickets for it were like $150 a piece. And I'm like, oh, first of all, I don't want to hang out with you for that long. And second of all, you could have given me that $300.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We would have had a way better time.
Right. And that's a conversation that
I'm not deducting your ticket price from the amount you owe me. That's not how things work.
Right. So to him, it was just, and I was so upset, because it's like, dude, I could have, in that 2 hours that we went to this dumb fucking event, I could have taken a nap, gone to the gym, done a show, gone to a mic, recorded a podcast, work. Like, there's so much other stuff I could have done with my time. And I have to keep reminding him, I'm like, I would always have to be like, you forget. Part of the reason we get along is because my goal is not to like marry you.
Right. If you want to start that kind of relationship, then maybe, but I don't think you're going to like me as much.
Yeah. Oh, you will not like me. Oh, you barely like me when you're, you know what I'm saying? Like, I barely am likable.
Doing my goddamn best to keep it together.
Right. I'm barely likable when I'm blowing you on a mountain of your own cash.
It's like, but the cool thing is, and that's something that's so hard with the seeking arrangements versus the escort thing, the structure exists already, right? It exists like outside of that. And this place created that kind of structure. This bitch didn't have to haggle with him over money. Her fucking mom did that, or her like adult chaperone person, or like some old lady that gives no fucks was doing all the negotiating for you before you even entered the room.
Right.
Right. But we don't have that. We need it as performers. And we need it, I think, as escorts.
I feel like I get treated. I feel like I get whored out more as a comic.
100%.
Do you know, like, because it's like I'm already. Like, you'll go to a show, you know. Oh, last night, and I had a great time. I was a really fun. I had a great set. I'm great. The audience was super fun. I'm happy with it. I was able to. So I was happy for that. That I was able to like work on a long set. So that was cool. Now, there was not a big audience, not a lot of people there, but they were good. And so now, not only did I not get paid, but even though I was headlining and I went to the bar to get a drink.
Oh, no.
I was like, can I just get I was like, vodka soda with bitters. Thanks. I get a vodka soda. And he goes, are you on the show? I go, yeah. And the producer goes, yeah, she's headlining. And he goes, okay, great. And then he goes to the register and he goes, it's going to be $7 for you. And I'm like, what? So I had to pay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for my half price.
So I had to pay money to go on stage. That's how you talk about how humiliating that is, which is why it's like it's difficult to, you know.
Yeah. Then no, it's humiliating.
So I gotta get paid. It's like, okay, not only am I gonna go on stage and bare
it's
my
like,
soul.
You know what? Don't even do me the favor. Like it's almost more insulting to give me a discounted drink than to just hand me a free drink.
Right.
Like, don't even give me the goddamn discount. Like, oh, what it really is like a poor discount. We're like, we know that you're a performer. We know you're broke. We know that you can't afford our dumb $14 cocktail.
Right.
So we're going to try to sell it to you for a price we think you can afford. It's not a favor.
Right.
It's a con.
This is not this is not performers. This is not, they're selling drinks at the bar. So, and I understand they have to stay open, but it's, so you do that, but you even as a comic, and there's a point where you have to start going, okay, this is how much, like for our live show. But like we're doing, and thank you so much. People are buying tickets. Thank you. The ticket link is up.
Great. We're going to do a venue change, but we'll keep you posted. But we're going to have a show that night. It's going to be a great fundraiser. We're going to have a really good time, but stay tuned on where the location is and just keep buying tickets.
Yeah, thanks. It's February 15th. Anyway, but like when you look at that, you go, okay, even with Glamour Puss, when we started, you sell tickets. And that's the idea that people go like, because there's so many free comedy shows. Yeah. And I made the joke to the audience member that they barked in yesterday. I was outside smoking, and they're like, "It's a free comedy show," and she goes, "Oh, it's free." And I said, "Oh, my material will reflect that." Ha! And they laughed, and I was like,
true.
I was like, I made a joke out of how shitty I was going to be, and they came in, and it was. I mean, obviously, we still try. We try our best because we
have a compulsion. It is an addiction.
Yeah, But it's crazy, but you have to set some kind of like, okay, there's a value to the service we're providing.
Yeah, paid audiences are way better behaved than fucking free audiences.
Right.
Yeah, and it's the same kind of thing here. It's like everything at this place had a value, right? You tipped your driver, you tipped the person eating with you, you tipped your tea person, you tipped your manicurist, you tipped your hairdresser. It's just like out and out and out, this entire economy around creating value around beauty and refinement and artistry and like being good at something beautiful. And just because it's pleasant and just because we love it doesn't mean that it's worthless. In fact, it's worth more.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you're improving, and not that I know that you went on this little hippy dippy deep breathing.
We should talk about that.
But it's true. You are that the value of like, and even something like going out to a nice restaurant, you know what I'm saying? Like, and we've talked about this where it's like a status elevator for that time. So if I'm like, I try like dive bars, that's not there'll be times where I'll be like, I'm just going to go, but it's like, well, I'm not going to take shots of vodka. So that is, I'm just going to get blackout drunk. That is not good. Now, if I'm like, okay, I drink way less and I have a better time if I spend a little more money and I go out and I get a nice glass of wine and like some cheese, and then you slow down and the ambiance and like you're paying for that.
Yes,
you know?
Absolutely.
Like, and so and that is with dealing with clients, and especially with the essay thing, because it is strange. And my experience on the site, the tactic that worked the best for me, and this was a sales technique that I used, that I learned from being a trainer, is I had in my mind what I wanted, and very simple calculation. As far as an allowance, it was like, okay, what was my day job? I'm pursuing comedy at night. This is my day job. And this is how much I made at that job. And so then I would just put that. I had a really standard amount. And I'm like, I'm looking for this. This is how much time I can give, and this whatever. Now, if you were to break that down, it would have been to break down what and it was not super high. It was nothing crazy, but it was like, because I'd never worked as an escort. So I didn't know. When I just talked to you later, people would be like, you were making how much? But it ended up, the breakdown was between like 300 and like 600
an hour. Okay.
Yeah. So that was the breakdown.
Cool.
And then the meets were only like 1 or 2 hours, because I would always be like, look, for reals, if comedy comes up, like that comes first, and I can't promise, and I don't like.
And that's also important to have too, is that I think it's so much easier to advocate for your own value when you have something that you're valuing like above this thing, right? So like whether it's your kids, or whether it's like something like artistic that you're pursuing, or whether it's like even like prioritizing social time, but like having something that is actually sacred, having something that is not bribe, like, and it helps you set boundaries. And your ability to set boundaries is what communicates to people your value as a human being.
Right. Yeah. And the sooner you can do that. And the other thing too is, and it's the same, and this is something that I noticed out of the gate when I first signed up for Seeking Arrangements. I can remember I was really nervous because with that, and you get this email and it's like, hey, and it's like they treat it like a regular dating site. And they would, before I ever met anybody on there, I can remember being intimidated. They'd be like, so what are you looking for? And so I had kind of like, and so I had this little like form, like just kind of a basic thing, and would send that out. Now, I didn't realize, and then it was like a month or two in, I hadn't met anyone, and I was like half looking at it, half not, because I was like, I make enough money. I was making enough money doing gigs. I was on the road, so I'm like, so I was still doing it like as a joke. I'm like, these fucking guys, let me see if this is even going to be worth my time. But a couple months in, I was like, wait a minute, why am I letting them ask me? I'll be like, what are you looking for? What are your expectations?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that if you're in that position, we as the providers you should feel more than comfortable if someone, especially on that, is like,
it puts you in the buyer position.
Yep.
And I think it's important is that, like, remember, these women were rejecting dudes for genuine reasons and also for like political reasons. But like, if you have rich dudes are a renewable resource. Right. Like, they're just going to be more of them coming through the pipe. You're the expert. You're the goddess. You're the coveted thing. So you're the decider. That's really what it is.
Yep.
You're the decider.
Yep.
So people are peacocking for you. Mm-hmm. People, and that's going to be true in like regular dating stuff, but it's especially true when there's a price tag attached to it. They have to impress you.
Yes.
And that's I think not the other way around. So you saying, what are you looking for, puts them in the hot seat. Because now they have to come up with an answer that they think works for you, not the other way around.
Right. Yep. I'd say, what are you looking for? What are your expectations? What's your experience? And if you put it in that, and it's the same dynamic as in a BDSM relationship, is people always think we have the sub and the dom. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure we've talked about this. Some people listening, like, are probably hip to it, but people that are not in the culture don't understand. The sub, I prefer to be submissive, but the sub doms from the bottom.
Yeah,
in that relationship,
the sub's the one in charge. They're the ones that set the limits.
Yep, the sub. Before you get it, if you're in a real BDSM relationship, even the dom, I've had more extensive interviews before I hooked up with a dom than I have for like jobs where I was making a lot of money.
Yes.
I had more, it was, when I was a trainer and I was like fixing people's physical body. Yeah. It was a more rigorous interview with this dude, like, okay, what's okay? And before we ever did anything, you do a meet and they do like pressure where it's like, is this too much? Give me a 10. Like,
yeah.
You have to do, it's like an hour of testing limits before you go, okay, and now we're playing.
Right.
But it's like
the more prep work you do.
Right. The providers are the ones running things. So keep that in mind. And we've said it, but in this specific communication, you can use those sales tactics and be like, this is what I'm here. This is what I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. What are your expectations?
Right. And the other thing is like, assume the yes.
Right.
Right. Because like, so when you ask for something, don't talk after that.
Correct.
Right. It's not, this, but if that's too much, like, don't let your anxiety voice win. Right.
No, yeah.
Throw it out there and then shut up and just trust that you're worth it. And trust that they can afford it, and trust that that they want to say yes, right? Yeah, it's anyway.
Yeah, and here's this is my other time. I'm like this. I really, when I got this email, and then I was like, what perfect timing. There would be, you're like this amount of, this is a monthly allowance, and they're like, well, so all at once. I break it up first, because obviously there's a trust issue, right? Because they don't know if they're gonna, if they could give you a big chunk of money and then you just never show the fuck up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I understand that there's fear there, and so there, you could, and then I would wait a while to get back, but you can say like, we can do that for the first two, and say, I understand. I want to make sure that we trust each other and we get along, and make sure that this is, and also stress that in your communications to be like, I want to make sure that we even like each other, because it puts you in a position of, and if they're like
being the decider.
Yep. And always, even if, and you did this, Kaytlin, even if you're like stealing toilet paper,
you don't need it. You gotta act like you
let me meet you in this hotel, act like you don't need it and walk in. And if they're like, can we go back and say, honestly, like, I'd rather just meet first and see if we even like each other, and say, like, chemistry is the most important thing, because if we're not enjoying each other, then there's really no point.
Yes.
And then that tiny thing of, let's see if we get along, because in their mind,
it makes you a person.
It makes you a person,
and not a commodity.
And it makes you, they're like, oh shit.
Yep.
They're the one on a job interview.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're on the interview, because
it is a subtle shift, but it's an important one.
Yep.
And I think that ability to decide was like a huge source of power for the women in this Ho-topia, and is also a huge source of power that we give away too freely, you know? And I think we're encouraged to give it away too freely just in regular dating, but also in this economy. Like, it's just, things can feel desperate, but you know, the more desperate you are, the more exploitable you are. And that's just how life works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is like a good example. I would love to do something like this now.
Yeah. I told you.
Maybe
find a field in the woods.
You know what? Or
build
maybe
something beautiful.
Or the Mark Hotel.
Oh yeah.
We just hang out the bar. I've never been there. I've heard.
We gotta get a dress up date together, just the two of us, to go out and just like drink martinis and shit talk at a fancy bar for shits and giggles.
Yep. And you know what I bet we could do? Because I don't bet, I know for sure we can do with the microphone this thing, because I've taken this out portable with jammers. We can probably like put this equipment in a purse and take it out and do like a bonus episode and just like record and like talk shit about like what we see.
We should do that for our Patreon supporters. Yeah, absolutely. Let's fucking do that.
I know we can do that.
After we get off this, let's schedule that night, and we'll bring our podcast equipment and loop people in. It'll be great.
And we'll pretend that, and I already know how to do the video thing, because we can set up. We'll pretend we're FaceTiming different people, but we'll really be taking videos on our phone to put on Patreon. Look at
amazing. We got this. Do you want to talk about the running away to the redwood forest like hippies, or do you want to talk about what's happening in New Orleans with the stripper strike, because it's pretty exciting?
Yeah, what is going on? Can we say the hippie thing? I want to hear.
Yeah, it's not that interesting. It's whatever. Like, tantra's cool, chakras are neat, and the redwood forest is beautiful. End of story. So
great.
But in New Orleans, they the police, right before Mardi Gras, which of course is a big deal in New Orleans, hundreds of thousands of people come to the city. It's a boom for all the businesses, right? From nail salons to bars to hotels to like all of it. Mm-hmm. So they closed 8 strip clubs on Bourbon Street to quote unquote like go after human traffickers. But they didn't arrest a single person for human trafficking. They didn't arrest anyone for anything. They just shuttered the fucking strip clubs because they're trying to like Disneyfy Bourbon Street or something. So they're using human trafficking as this bullshit excuse to close down these strip clubs. And all of these strippers are like, we need this money to feed our kids, and it's happening right before Mardi Gras. And so all of the strippers got together, they organized, right? They found their voice, and they took over a press conference that was supposed to be like they were like repaving Bourbon Street or something. So you've got like the proud city councilman and like the engineer, and they're like the circle jerk, like with their clipboards and stuff, and they were like, we did a thing, we're the government. And so all of these strippers showed up, and they were like, yeah, the government's stupid, they shut down these clubs for no reason, and now we can't feed our family, you dumb cunts.
Right.
And I love it, and I think it's fantastic.
And it's not trafficking.
It's not trafficking.
Everybody, listen up. It's not the same. And I understand sex trafficking. We've talked about this, but it's not the same. And it's so frustrating.
When you conflate those two, you hurt women and you hurt trafficking victims.
Yeah.
Because, trafficking victims end up getting arrested.
Because guess where a trafficking victim is not? Dancing around on a stage with
New
beads.
Orleans.
Yeah, guess where? They're somewhere. They're in some fucking, probably in the hull of a cruise ship somewhere.
Right?
You know what I'm saying? Like,
probably trying to sell green pills for $7,000.
I thought you were going to say Greenpeace. They'd like, in between getting sex trafficked, they're like, we need you to go get 10 people's credit cards. And so like, does the misery ever end?
Raising money for Greenpeace. We're selling green pills. It's all a nightmare. No, but it's this trafficking hysteria is being used to like shut down legal sex work establishments, go after fucking women. I mean, like remember that woman that was arrested on that airplane?
Yeah.
Right? And remember those people that are getting arrested in hotels because like they're dressing too slutty for the hotel clerk, and so the hotel clerk is like, this is probably a trafficking victim. So like a SWAT team shows up. Like that's happening right now. So anyway, I'm so glad to see the strippers of New Orleans fighting back. We've got their back. NPR gave them some good coverage. Like the cool thing about the sex worker movement now is that we're starting to get like some actual media coverage.
Yeah,
like
I've been noticing that on social media and like reading the articles, and and a lot of people are starting to pay attention.
Yep,
and see it, then realize it's a legitimate business, and you're not an immoral person. You're not a bad guy. It's not the worst
thing ever. We'd rather have a strip club in our community than, I don't know, a thing that makes bombs. I don't know, something bad, something that smells. I'd rather have a strip club than a paper mill factory in my town.
Yeah. Well, it's for me. I want both.
All right, fair. We'll go to
Because how are we
Terre
going to let
Haute.
people know where the shows are, comedy shows and strip shows, if we don't have paper to tape on walls and shit?
Reasonable.
Because I'm shutting down Facebook, and that was the other thing I've been thinking about this whole episode.
Yeah, really?
Well, it's just scary. Let's just go back old-timey, just flyer poles and shit.
Yeah, no. I'm thinking about running away to the woods again. Trey was like trying to look at property in a worst case scenario of like just like building a little log cabin with like a stream and like some solar panels and like I don't know, like a bunny rabbit or something.
Yeah. Dude, we do a Ho-topia in the Redwoods.
We got to do a Ho-topia in the Redwoods, man. All right, well, follow us on social media. We're at Old Pro Podcast on Twitter and Instagram.
Yes.
Email us at theoldestprofessionpodcast@gmail.com. We do know it's long. I'm sorry. You can go to our website, which is also theoldestprofessionpodcast.com.
Yeah.
Follow me on Twitter at Kaytlin Bailey, spelled weird. You can find it.
You can follow me on Twitter at Wendi Starling, WendiStarling, WendyBird82 on Instagram, and follow us maybe into the middle of a giant redwood tree.
Yeah, they're huge. Trey and I, we took a hike, and I made eye contact with a 1,000-year-old tree, and it just changed my perspective. The Native Americans were just right about everything. We fuck Jesus on a cross, worship trees. Like that's where God lives. It's amazing.
And you expect me to believe you didn't take acid.
I didn't take acid.
Speaking of taking a hike, I got to take my sweet ass to the gym.
All right.
I love you.
I love you too. Thank you so much for listening. This has been
The Oldest Profession.
This episode is sponsored by Velvet Swing, which is a cannabis-enhanced lube that is very nice.
Ooh.
You should follow the founder. This is a whore-owned and operated business.
Okay.
Mistress Matisse on Twitter. So buying this product supports not just your own sex life, but also the sex worker rights movement. Mistress Matisse is a big deal.
Thank you, mistress.
Yes, you can follow Mistress Matisse at Mistress, MISTRESS, Matisse, MATISSE.
Yeah, you know why I feel so good? Because while you were in the kitchen about 10 minutes ago before we recorded this, I took the cannabis lube and I jammed it in my butthole. I'll tell you not the thing.
How do you feel?
Amazing.
Right? You feel relaxed?
I feel my butthole feels great.
Your butthole feels
oh my
relaxed?
God, I didn't even think about this. This would be great for anal.
Of course. Yeah, you can't overestimate the importance of a relaxed butthole.
I love anal already. I'm going to be squirting all over the wall if I put some... Okay, now I do want to wrap this because I want to go get fucked.
Velvet Swing, so you can get high while getting down.